something really interesting happens when you shift from thinking about events to thinking about records. Thank you very much for this comment, Josie, because you've just sparked another thought in me. You made this comment in response to my post about archive management and how they are using the fact that they have so-called stripped Prince Andrew's title, and they're not calling him Prince Andrew, but they're calling him by other names in order to fragment the archives and and they don't want what he's done to be associated with the monarchy. But something interesting really happens when you shift from thinking about events to thinking about records. History isn't what happened. Again, it's not just what happened. It's what gets written down, and it's what's retrievable in the future. And that's where Prince Harry's memoir, Spare, becomes one of the most strategically powerful moves he's ever made, not just personally, but historically, culturally, and even institutionally. Let's unpack that. First of all, let's look at the context. For decades, and literally decades, Harry's life, marriage, motives, feelings, relationships, and family dynamics were narrated, were spoken about by other people, reporters, court insiders, anonymous sources, tabloid writers, palace briefers, and some of them had their own agendas. Some didn't, but the public record, the archive, was filled with stories about him, not from him. That is archive distortion. Your life story gets filtered through other people's version of you. So when Harry announced that he was writing Spare, it wasn't just another celebrity autobiography. It was him saying, if my story is going to exist in history, it needs to be told by me. And that, in archive terms, is profound, because words, unlike press leaks or whisper campaigns or spin, they persist. They are objects. They can be collected. They can be searched. They can be quoted centuries later. They exist in libraries, in library catalogs, in digital databases forever. In fact, if you are an author and you write a book, a copy of the book legally is required to be in the British Library. That is how important archiving is to the record keeping of the United Kingdom. So when you put something in print under your own authorship, you are effectively staking a claim in the historical record. And that's why Harry wrote his book. Well, one of the reasons anyway. Now, I want you to also consider Diana's famous BBC Panorama interview in 1995. That interview did more than air her personal views. It actually changed the way that the world saw Diana. It shifted the archive of her public image. It became a historical source about her agency, her struggles, and her truth. More than second or even third-hand narratives ever did. Harry saw that. Harry lived that. He watched how a single published interview shaped his mother's record in history, for better or for worse, and how a lot of humans remembered her. That lesson certainly wasn't lost on Harry. So when Harry said he wrote Spare because 38 years of having my story told by other people had created spin and distortion, he wasn't complaining casually. He was identifying a systemic archive problem and taking direct action to fix that problem. Yes, that's what he did. Because here's the deeper piece. And again, this came to me and I thought, oh my God, this is so true. The palace, the British press, and institution never had to engage with Harry's words in their original form until he made them. Leaks can be twisted, anonymous briefings can be denied, and reporters can call stories unverified. But a book is a primary source, and a primary source is one of the most valuable things when it comes to journalism. So when a historian, a student, or a curious reader decades from now want to know about Harry's perspective, they can open a copy of Spare. And that is the power of the archive. So you can't retroactively delete a book from an archive. You can't quietly correct it later. You can't reassign the words. You can't also reassign the origin. It exists under Harry's name at this moment in time and forever after. That is why the British press's attempts to twist reactions matter less in the long run, because the first source from Harry himself won't vanish. It's there forever. It cannot be overwritten by tabloid headlines that vanish a day later. That's the difference between sound bites and sound records. Sound bites are, they disappear just like that. But archives are lasting. Archives last forever. The words said on camera can be edited, but words that are printed in ink or digitized, they can be vetted, cross-checked, cited, and preserved. That's a reason why Diana spoke publicly, not just in interviews, but in sustained forms. And it's the same reason Harry did his book. Because once something is in print under your name, it becomes part of the fixed documentary record of history. And that can never be erased. And here's another angle that I feel that people miss. Harry's timing. He didn't write it while he was a working member of the institution. He wrote it after, when he was independent, outside the constraints of protocol, and not subject to palace approval. That is what we call archive autonomy. Archives are not just about the truth. They are about ownership of voice, control of narrative presence, and the permanence of your testimony. And that is why Harry said in interviews that he wrote the book to address the spin and distortion and to correct people's misunderstanding of him and Meghan. So for me, Spare wasn't about revenge. It was about accountability, and it was about the record. And as far as I'm concerned, I believe he's done the right thing. And comments please. But thank you so much, Josie, for bringing this up. Again, I'm going to explore a lot more around archive management and how history has maybe distorted certain things, and maybe there are more views than the one that's been presented to us in the press. But anyway, let me have your comments, please. I am keen to read them. And if you have any more ideas or suggestions, do let me know. My name's Elizabeth. I'm the author of The Luxpreneur. And for more insights like these, please like, share, comment, and follow me. And to support my work, please pick up a copy of The Luxpreneur today from Amazon, Waterstones, or Barnes & Noble. Or you can simply buy me a coffee. Yes, I'm on Buy Me a Coffee, and you can simply do that. So thank you so much for your time.